Welcome to OT and OK, where we discuss all things occupational therapy in Oklahoma, brought to you by the Oklahoma Occupational Therapy Association. I'm your host, Rebecca Woollett, and today I will be joined by Stephanie Bethel. Hello, Stephanie.
Hey. Hello.
All right, go ahead and
So,
tell a little bit about yourself.
yeah. So I am an occupational therapy assistant and I've been volunteering with OKOTA for I want to say 3 years as the IT admin slash committee chair for basically all the website things. And I practice in outpatient pediatrics in Bartlesville, but I live in Collinsville.
A bit of a drive.
Yes.
Dedication. Okay, so today we were going to talk about what to expect for our new graduates. First of all, congratulations.
Congratulations on the new grads.
How exciting. It is definitely grad season. Everybody's getting out there, getting started, and I know it's a little bit chaotic whenever you first get out there. I wouldn't have known what to do without my professors. So, we're just going to give a little insight on how to make things easier. First things first, always start the process as soon as you can. I know
Yes.
for us personally, the program that we were in, we started while we were in school. Our professors helped us with that. If you have not already submitted an application for your licensure, you're likely not going to get approved pretty quick. I would definitely recommend doing that right away. I saw last time we talked, Stephanie,
Mm.
we discussed that they have 30 days prior to the meeting, and that's actually tomorrow.
Right. As of this recording is literally tomorrow. So unfortunately, anyone who is planning to like right out the gate become practicing, if you haven't gotten that already in you're gonna have to wait a little bit.
Yeah, which is September 9th is the next meeting, if I remember correctly. And yeah, but temp license shouldn't be as affected by that, correct?
No, it is.
It is. Okay.
So, to kind of explain a little bit by why these dates even like exist or they're important. So basically the Occupational Therapy Advisory Committee, which is a part of our Oklahoma Medical Board, they only meet so many times a year. And when they meet, they approve the temporary license applications and the actual permanent license applications. Technically, it's the same thing, but you might apply for a temporary letter, but we'll go over that. But because they are a small group, they can, and I believe they're all volunteers. They only meet so many times throughout the year. So this next time, that their very first time from this recording that they're meeting is June 3rd. So a bit late. But they'll meet next time on September 9th. So between that whole time, no one is getting approved for anything because they haven't met to do so.
Okay. So they do it as a committee as a whole. That
Correct.
they do it in bulk essentially. Kind of
Yes.
everybody who's applied in the meantime gets their determination. So likely most of the students, hopefully, fingers crossed, they started the process within their program. And I think that a majority of the the majority of the graduates that I talked to, they actually started it before the graduation. And I know that that's kind of become the usual in most of the programs that I've spoke to, but we don't know for sure. So if they have submitted their application and everything's been paid and everything's been taken care of, even with deficiencies, they can get approved by the committee still, and then they have to submit later whatever they were missing. So for me personally, I had to submit proof of graduation, and I had to submit my actual testing from the MBCOT. So hopefully most of the programs are starting that. I think it would be better for the graduates if they did start that because it helps them to get their foot right out the door and get going. But if your program has not started that, it is likely that you will have to get a checklist of your own and then follow that checklist and probably have to wait till September 9th for anything. But fingers crossed that we don't have to do that. So the first thing that we started after graduation, once we did all of our licensure through the Oklahoma Medical Board, was we jumped straight into preparing for the big test,
Mm.
which is done through the MBCOT. The medical board, would you like to go through the process of what needs to happen for that? Let's definitely do that. Touch on what it needs to go through.
Yeah. And when you had mentioned a checklist, I just wanted to throw out there is a resource form. I know the name of it is in here somewhere. Um, and we'll make sure to put it in the show notes for this podcast. But there is actually a form that has the checklist of all the items that you do need to submit to complete your application. It's kind of interesting, um, to begin, you go on to the Oklahoma Medical Board and you start an actual application through them. That application will have you give a history from the age of 18 to current. I believe that's like the main thing that happens in that particular application, other than paying. And then you're going to have some other forms and things that you have to put in. As long as you have submitted the application and paid money, you are considered as like having started your application for licensure. So as long as that part's in, you will be on the list of people to potentially approve at the next meeting. So just making sure you get that part done first is really important.
I remember too on that form where you have to fill in the gaps, they want to know if you were employed, if you were unemployed, what you were doing with your time, and they do not like to have any missing information in there. And I remember
Yes.
I had to go back and look at Facebook to find out what I was doing during certain years. Even if you're in school, you can put that you're in school. If you're employed by somebody, I don't know necessarily how important the timeline to a specific is, but try to be as specific as possible so that they can have validation and verification on where you were, what you were doing, and just kind of a little background on who you are.
Yes. Any of your old resumes will probably help you out a lot, just because it's pretty similar to that, like your month and year for certain things. Um, it can just be a little bit intense. But part
A little
of
bit.
yeah, just a little. Um, Part of the application process will also include getting a background check through the medical board as well. Um, then at one point you are going to be need to find a notary for I believe one of the papers, and also take a passport-like photo. So there's like a lot of little requirements that go into it, but prioritize just getting that main application in first and the fee, just because that's going to get you started at least for the consideration. And that's really important for being able to get a temporary license. Or a temporary letter to practice. If your application is approved, pending the completion of all your requirements. So obviously, one of the requirements is going to be your MBCOT. Um, I had the temporary letter to practice, so I was actually practicing before I took my test, and then that letter is valid until the next meeting. So if you have a temporary letter to practice, it's valid until September 9th. And then I don't know if you have to, what process you have to go through there, but hopefully you would have taken your test and gotten your results by then. That's what happened for me. So basically, you send in all that information, but you also have to have what they call an approval to test letter. So when you go for the NBCOT, you have to sign up with them and pay them a bunch of money and all
Yeah.
that. And then they send you a special letter that's your ATT approval to test letter. That's important for you to be able to sign up where you're going to test, but it's also important if you want to get a temporary letter to practice. So if you get that sent to the medical board, and along with a Form 5 is just a supervision form essentially. So all OTAs will always have to fill out Form 5s for wherever they work. However, in this case, also OTs, if they're needing a temporary letter to practice, will need that Form 5 as well, because you do need to be supervised by a licensed occupational therapist. And it does have to be direct supervision. So as long as you have that in, then you can get a temporary letter to practice. And basically you get to practice while you're not technically licensed all the way yet, so you don't have taken the test yet, which is really nice. So you can actually get started in the field a lot faster. And hopefully, I'm just thinking about all of our May grads, but I do know that we have some summer grads. So hopefully, if they kind of are in on it, they're able to kind of get right out the door to that. But
Yeah, I wish I would have thought to talk about this sooner. But I remember like with my personal experience, I was going to do the temporary letter. And
mhm,
then I realized that the same steps apply if you don't do the temporary letter. You have to basically follow the same thing. So if you do get your temp license, you still have to send in all the information, just like you said. You have to do the test, and once you've got your test results, you have to submit that. So it's just a foot in the door just a little bit faster. It
yes.
doesn't really change too much for you. You still have to follow the same steps. You have to complete the same process. It's just you get to do that while also working in the field. But it's not the easiest thing to get either, from what I remember.
Yeah, it's a lot of coordination. I feel like they kind of want, and I could be wrong on this, but I feel like they would prefer at the very least that you have everything except for your MBCOT score completed and submitted, as well as the Form 5. And I'm not sure if they need something from the employer or not, but I think that was actually just the stuff for the Form 5 with mine. So basically, the only deficiency I think you're technically supposed to have at that point is your MBCOT. So it is kind of complicated because you have to coordinate with everybody to make sure that everything is legal before you go
Oh, yeah.
ahead and start trying to see clients.
It is also important to note with your Form 5, most employers are going to have that readily available for you. And if you do, you can get it online. But if you were to get it on your own, you still have to take it to your location and it has to be signed by the supervising OT and I think also by the management. I
I
know
believe
that
so.
I think my manager had to sign mine. And then you just submit that as well. I know some locations, the manager or the office staff will also submit it for you. I know that there's a couple places where they do that process for you. With your temp license, you would probably need to get in contact with the people you're planning to work for and get their information, have them fill out the form. That way you can send it in because I don't think that they will probably do that step for you if you have a temp license. I feel like that's more on an employee based whenever you're graduated and you have everything else under control. The Form 5 would be as you get started. And with the Form 5, you have your supervisor that's your main supervisor, and you can also have secondary supervisors. And that's beneficial for the days that your OT is out, the days that you need coverage, and if you need to be able to say, I spoke to this OT regarding this client, you have information back that they are able to give you guidance on that. And it's really important to keep that Form 5 updated. So if you leave and go to another location, or if your OT leaves and goes to another location, you need to make sure that that's updated as quickly as possible because they can't supervise other individuals if their Form 5 is full. And I didn't understand anything about the Form 5 whenever we first got it. I just knew that I had to have it signed. And as I've kind of gone through the process, I've realized that it actually is important for more than just, who's actually going to be signing. They're signing all of your notes, your
Mhm.
discharges. I mean, they are responsible. They accept the responsibility of the actions that you make as a practicing OTA. And it is very important for you to have that connection with them. I would recommend also, I don't know how you feel about this. I have worked on relationships with my supervising OTs because it is so important that they're risking their license for our decisions. So
Mhm.
you want to have a relationship to where they don't have to question you or, if you need guidance, you can reach out to them easily. I know I can text mine any day and night and we're going to be able to talk things out. So get started on building those relationships as well, especially for the individuals on your Form 5 because you want to be able to trust them and know that they trust you. It's a very relationship building form, honestly.
Right.
Really works well.
I will say, adding to that, before you can work anywhere, your Form 5 must have been processed by the medical board. And so if you're an OTA or if you're a new grad, it is your responsibility to know that you are on the Form 5 and it has been processed. Unfortunately, there have been cases where people said, oh, yeah, I sent that in and it didn't actually get sent in. You are not legally allowed to practice. If you're an OTA without being under supervision of some kind, or if you're a student or new grad rather, on a temporary license, you cannot be practicing unless you're on that Form 5. So you can actually check that by going to, I'm sure you may have figured this out already if you've already submitted your stuff and you got your license number and everything. It will actually show up under, so you search yourself and you find your license. It will show up on the medical board's website, who your supervisors are. So if that's not up there, I would not be practicing if I were you. I would not take anyone's word for it unless if the medical board specifically like tells you in writing that it's been
That
processed and approved.
that you're good. Yeah, you don't want to be there's no point in being careless with your license. This is something that you've worked extremely hard for. You've done all the testing, you've done all the schoolwork, you've got all the knowledge. I guard my license like it's my life.
I
So,
mean, hey,
I
it's
mean,
kind of
hey,
your
I worked
livelihood, so
hard. Yes, I worked hard to get here. So
yes.
I personally, I even told the students that just graduated, I was letting them know you have to protect it because it's not saying that there's careless people out there, but not everybody's going to have your license and your livelihood as a priority. And it is very important to do everything necessary to keep your license safe. And
Yes.
I think that that isn't pressed too much, but I think it could be pressed a little more in school, how important it is that every decision you make can be a reflection on your license. So it's very important to follow all the guidelines and all the steps and all the rules to make sure that your license is safe because one day that's going to be your livelihood. Like you said, that's how you're going to pay your bills. That's how you want all that hard work to be for something. The most important thing that I think that all new grads need to know, though, is the payment that goes into starting the process. So, like for me, I had to quit my job. I was focusing on school. So if I wouldn't have known about the costs that were coming my way, I wouldn't have been able to get my license or my test or all the other stuff. So it's important to note that whenever you sign up through the Oklahoma Medical Board for your application for licensure, it is 120 for the initial, and you will have to renew every 2 years
Yes. No.
for,
No,
for
no, sorry, my bad. We renew every year. However, we have to have
you're right.
proof of our CEUs every two
Every two
years.
years. So
Yes.
CEUs, if you don't know, are continuing education units. You have to take courses or, attend conferences like the OKOTA conference. You get these CEUs and you have to keep documentation of them and you have to put them on the website to prove that you've had them. They're usually signed by a staff member. Yeah, iffy. You're
So
supposed to.
yes and no. It depends if you get audited. If you get audited, then you do have to send them the proof. But if you're wise, you'll have it set already so you can just send it right to them. They just do a random lottery essentially to audit. So you do have to have your 20, right?
Yes,
Yeah, your 20 CEUs every 2 years, by October 31st of I think it's every even year, right?
I think so. Yeah,
Yep.
because it was 2024 that we all had to. Yep.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So every even year by October 31st, you must have had 20 continuing education units. The Oklahoma Medical Board partners with a program called CE Broker that you can use for free, and it just helps you track the proof that you have had those CEUs. You don't have to submit them unless if you are pulled from that lottery for audit at random. However, it would just be really smart to have it there because then you could just send it on over and you wouldn't have a problem.
Right. You don't have to dig in your files for it anywhere.
Right.
Another mention, on the off chance that you are graduating, you've got your licensure and you're ready to practice right now. You're paying the 120 for your initial application this year by October 31st. You're also going to have to pay another $100 to renew your license because it's coming up on time. So
Yes,
it would essentially it's the same step. They send email reminders when your license is coming up, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe
Um,
so.
and you can follow the links on that. It's really easy. It doesn't require too much, just the payment. It is a little unfortunate that as soon as you get it, you have to renew it, but
Yes.
it
Yep,
happens.
they say as long as you received your license before November 1st, you must pay to renew it. Not my favorite rule.
Mine either.
Not my favorite, but
I
that's
was
just how it goes.
I was just telling you too. I started my job in September and by October I was already renewing and I was like, well, this is silly. But once you renew it, it's super simple. You just get your printout form, turn it into your supervisor, and you're good to go. As far as the medical board goes, the website is a little kind of hard to navigate. So if you have any questions for that, be sure to ask your professors, ask your coworkers, ask anybody that's already been through it. Because once you've been through it, it's easy to follow and navigate. But the initial learning of it, it is a little click heavy and a little hard to navigate. It's mainly going to forms and resources, following your steps. You can search your name, as you mentioned before, and you can actually access all of your information and what you need to update from there. That's how I've done it before. It's not the easiest to prepare yourself for that. Give yourself time and also give them time because it's not an immediate, your license is renewed either. So I would recommend a week or two prior at minimum getting all the information and the money going so that you can have your license updated so you don't have to go without work for any unknown amount of time. That
Right.
part is not my favorite.
Yes. I will say if you can follow auditory directions for this, I don't know if many people can, but that's okay. Um, on the current version of the medical board website, more toward the right, there is a tab for boards and committees. If you click that drop down, you'll see a spot for occupational therapists and assistants, and then you click that. Then you're going to get to a page that's has like almost like a mini set of pages toward the middle of that page. And then the forms and resources tab is really where you're going to see a lot of your stuff. But that's also where you can find like our practice act and other important things. So I imagine as a student, you may have gone through that just because you probably needed to know more about the Practice Act
Yeah.
for our state. So it is in that same area.
And I looked over just now and I kid you not, I found one of my CEUs. So this is what we're
Nice.
talking about. You'll attend some type of class, some type of conference. They give you this. It's signed, it's dated, it's got all the information needed. It tells you how many completion hours. That's what you need. And you need 20 hours based off of what this form says, not how many hours you spent in the course. It goes
Yes.
off of how many completion hours that they gave you on the printout. And I don't think I've been to any of them that haven't sent me a certificate of completion. So keep up with those the best you can. I have a folder. I'm sure you have a folder. I saw you scanning yours right away at the
Yes.
OKOTA conference. So it's very important. It's just to have those or at least know where they are because like you said, you never know if you'll get audited and you want to be able to prove that you have done what's required of you to keep your license active.
You do have to make sure it's something that's going to be essentially like approved. The cool thing about if you go to like OKOTA's conference, we are already approved through the Oklahoma Medical Board. So whatever you do at conference for CEUs and you get the certificate and everything like that, that will already be approved. AOTA also will be auto approved. So anything that's been approved by AOTA.
I think
And then there's other
ONAP is
ones.
too. ONAP.
ONAP, yes, but they have to apply for, so basically what they do is they take all their information from conference and they submit it to the medical board and they decide whether or not it counts. Of course, like what they do counts, but it just takes a bit. So sometimes when I've been actually registering my CEUs, it hasn't showed up as
Okay.
approved yet, and so I had to wait. And then other times it showed up already there as one of the approved vendors. So it might just take a minute sometimes for them to go through that process, but if it is through OKOTA or AOTA, I'm pretty sure they just automatically go through.
Media approval. I thought so. And I remembered I went to the ONAPT conference and I couldn't remember there was something similar to that. I thought it was basically what you said that it is approved, but like it takes a little bit and it's almost like an individual approval versus where if you turn in your OKOTA one, it's immediate because it's through OKOTA. Okay. That's it. You can't be too careful. Those conferences, some of them are long and some of them are steady, and they require a lot. And so you want to make sure that you're not going and spending 3 days at a conference for it to not count towards what you're actually, I mean, get all the knowledge you want to, but
Yeah, sure.
it's
But
also
if
like
you're doing it
you're
just for the
there.
CEUs, you might want to make sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I can't tell you the people that I've met at conference, those kinds of things, they're important for networking, they're important for learning, they're important for so many things, and they're so beneficial. So if you get a chance to go to a conference, not just pushing for OKOTA, but definitely go to the conference. And this year our OKOTA one is in Tulsa, so if you're in that area, by all means, come on by. You can find me and Stephanie there. We're there every year.
Yes. I'm so excited. I was actually really worried that I wouldn't be able to come this year
Yeah.
because I'm a part of an OT Bridge program and it's out of state. So I have to
Oh,
actually fly out to go there once a month
oh my
for in-person
gosh.
labs. And they're on the weekends. And it's typically the first weekend of the month.
Oh
And I
no.
was so bummed. And then I got my list, and thankfully it lands on the second week for October, only for October. So I get to go to a conference again this year. It is like
Yes.
the main event of the year for me and for my friends and a lot of my colleagues. I'm so hyped because I got to convince more people to come this year because of
Oh,
it being at the Hard Rock in Tulsa. So
I
yeah.
know. I was telling Gina on our last episode, I was like, my family's right down the road. I might let them just come check it out and see what I do, kind of get a feel for it. That'd be kind of cool for them to be able to see because not a lot of people understand what we do and why we do it. And so when those speakers get up there and they start breaking things down to, I mean, to a science, it actually, even for me, I know what I'm doing and I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. So I'm like, maybe having people who don't have, any knowledge in the field can come in and they can learn. So it's always a great opportunity and it's always so much fun. I can't think of a single time that I was like, can we get out of here? So highly recommend, not just because I work for it, I go and I work hard for it, but it's definitely one of those experiences that kind of changes your whole outlook on the networking experience. Highly recommend.
For sure. And then with OKOTA, and we'll plugging in some more things here. For new grads, something we're doing very recently actually is if you are a new grad for your first year of practice from graduation, you can actually continue your student membership and get your student rate for that first year. And then something that I personally did, there's a type of membership where you can get the first 3 years at a discount bundled together, and it was a really good rate. So like I'm set for 3 years. I guess I've got one more year to go before I have to worry about my membership again. So those are definitely some things to check out because we really, really want to see the students come join us and be a part of our organization. And even, at conference, I feel like students are a really big focus.
Mm.
They've got all the awesome programs out there with the booths, and they're always, helping out. And it's really awesome to see the students. And I really, really hope to see them as our fellow practitioners come join us at conference or just as part of our organization so we can see you all. It's really fun.
It's really exciting. On that, before we get to the big scary final test,
Yes.
with that, you can actually volunteer for OKOTA. We're always looking for volunteers. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to us because we're both volunteers currently for
Mhm.
OKOTA. With that being said, coming into the conference as a newcomer into the field, I jumped straight into volunteering with OKOTA. I wasn't even graduated when I was first helping you. And I think that that alone has helped me with my confidence level as far as being in this organization because I do have a little bit more knowledge from you guys because you guys are also knowledgeable and you guys have all helped me expand my knowledge. With that part of the organization being so active and me getting to play a role in the conference, jumping in head first, I really feel like as a practitioner, I have so many connections that can help me with any question I have. I never doubt, do I have somebody I can talk to about this? So if you're looking for a little bit of an inclusivity, a little bit of a guidance, maybe just a friend in the field,
Yeah.
OKOTA would be a good place to start. Volunteering is definitely good. It's good for your soul. It's just good for networking in general.
True.
It really is. And going to the conferences, you get to run into people. And I have people that I walk down the hallway and I'm saying hi to people that I met 2 years ago at conference. And now I'm like, hey, I'm actually working now. Like I do this stuff. So you get to see people grow throughout their journey and you get to kind of be a part of that. And it's really interesting. It's really cool to be in that
Yeah.
network. I'm always pushing networking to the students. I'm like, network, network, network.
It's
Everybody
important.
knows everybody. They do. And
Yes.
field is not, we're a larger field, but we're not the biggest field. So I mean, I can look at people and be like, hey, do you know so and so? And probably 8 times out of 10, they're gonna know who I'm talking about.
The other day, I actually got a client specifically referred to me because of someone I know who
I
was
love
working like in the school setting, and the parents needed someone in the area who did outpatient, and so they were able to refer to me because
Oh,
they knew who I was, right? So it's really cool that we can also do that. We can also help our clients by being like, hey, I know that person, they're a good practitioner, and they're in your area. So it's also really helpful for our
yeah.
clients too.
Is really good. And it's for me personally, I enjoyed that our program did the mentee and mentor process of it, and I think that that still is applicable whenever you're practicing to have a mentor that you can go to for any times. I know me personally, my boss is my mentor. I go to him for just about anything and everything. I can ask him the silliest questions because sometimes we do doubt ourselves. There's also things that we know a lot about that we might think, that doesn't really match, but having that second opinion always helps. I can go
Yes.
to go to just about anybody in my field, or anybody in my area and just be like, "Hey, what's your opinion on this?" And I think that especially as a new grad, it is important to have that comfort, that fallback because
Mhm.
you're out there on your own, you're a new baby bird, you're flying. It's time, you got to have somebody that you can go to. So always make sure that you have somebody in your corner, somebody that can help you because it is scary when you get out there, but it is so rewarding and it is so much fun and it's worth it. All that hard work and sleepless nights, you're like, this is why I did it. And I
Yeah.
love that, I'm getting to experience that. I know you've been experiencing that. So it's good that you get to have that insight. But I know I would not have made it here if I didn't have people like Stephanie or, the other people that I've, had to talk to, my mentor to go to because you never know. You might need somebody one day. and not
Yeah.
everybody knows about our field.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get on to the big bad test now.
Bum, bum, bum.
It's not necessarily bad. For the MBCOT, it is a very long and expensive test. I am not too proud to admit that I had to take it twice. My first time I went in there and I felt decent, but my nerves got the best of me. And I'm telling you, when you're sitting there for hours staring at the screen, taking this test in a silent room, and it can be a little overstimulating that there's no stimulation in the room. So for me personally, I kind of blacked out a little bit.
Oh
I
no.
remember I walked out and I was like, I don't think I passed that. And I immediately started saving for test number two. And so you wait 30 days, if you don't pass, you get your 30 days, you get to take it again. You do have to pay again. And is it five? It's $515, I think.
That sounds right. That sounds
Somewhere
right
around
to
there.
me.
It's 500 plus. So
Yeah.
make sure that you're saving for that as well. And every time that you retake it, you do have to pay that same price. They do not have a discount. So try your hardest, but understand that failing the test is not a failure or a reflection of who you are as a practitioner. So I do not test well. I was well aware of that. I know that there are plenty of other people who do not test well. So if you do fail that first time, take it as an opportunity to learn. You've already got the experience within the testing program. You know what to expect. Now you just go back and you do it again. With that being said, we can't really give much guidance on what to study, how to study. Everybody's got a different studying process, but each one of the tests are different. You're not going to have the same test twice.
Right.
So, my biggest recommendation for those of you who are about to study for the MBCOT is not to study any terminology or know your terminology, but don't focus on your terminology. It's more of a situational test, really. You're put in scenarios and you have to kind of determine what the best route is. More often, both of my tests were like that. I think most of them are scenario based. So, don't overdo it and don't don't stress yourself out for it. You know more than you think you know. And it really does come to you once you're in there and you stop and you start to reflect on how would I approach this? But it's one of those tests that it is still nerve-wracking. It is,
Yeah.
it was probably the scariest test I've ever taken in my life. But
Yeah.
I think
Honestly, yeah.
I know, yeah, like oh, the anxiety. I think for you guys, I did personally, I had the therapy ed book and I read through it. And then I did the MBCOT practice test on the website with the account that you get. And I know that as a unit, our class decided that those were the two study options that we were going to use. And I honestly loved the MBCOT website. I didn't really know too much about the AOTA program, but I know that they offer one as well. So if you have a SOTA program within your graduating class and you guys meet and you discuss study material, I know not all not everybody does that, but if you guys do, look into what comes with each one of like the options and figure out what works best for your class overall as far as study material because they are each vastly different.
Oh yeah.
Therapy ed is very detailed to the point. MBCOT, we didn't get the hard copy book, but I know the website, it's detailed, but it's more of a practice test. It's more of flashcards, quizzing, that kind of stuff. And that worked for me, but that didn't work for all my classmates. So it's important to consider what works best for you and how you study and how you learn because those are the three main options. I think those are the three major options.
I've heard of a few other ones. But I would say for me, I think the best approach is to definitely include the NBCOT stuff in your stuff just because it gives you more of that format of how the test is going to look. However, I would say that the MBCOT questions through the practicing does tend to be easier than maybe what you're going to see on the test. Whereas, like something like therapy ed or some of these other ones might be more intense than you're going to see on the test.
Yeah.
But anything for me that explains rationale is really important. That's why I really liked the therapy ed. I didn't do great on those practice tests, but it helped me understand why someone might think that way or what they're kind of wanting to get out of you from that. And then on the MBCOT website, they do have an exam handbook, and we'll include that in the show notes as well. It's going to talk about what you need to do to be able to do your test, and some other things. But I believe that one, if not somewhere on the MBCOT site, will also have how the test is broken up. So, like, a certain percentage of the questions are going to be about this kind of stuff. And then another percentage is going to be about this other kind of stuff, and it can help you understand where you need to focus more on, and what places you're kind of weak in. That
That
can
part
be
was
helpful.
helpful,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
helpful. I think it's also what you were mentioning with therapy ed. Whenever I took my therapy ed practice test, and when you get an incorrect answer, it provides you with why that answer is incorrect and why the correct answer is the correct answer. I don't remember much about MVCOT doing that. I think they provide a
Mm-mm.
little box of information, but I don't think that they really go too much into detail. One thing that was told to me by one of the graduates in the cohort above me was one of your fellow graduates, was that she actually took that practice exam because they have a practice exam that has the same amount of questions as the actual
Mm.
exam on there. And she woke up early. She did everything she would have done on the day of the big exam, and she took it seriously. Now, I know that's not completely logical for everybody, but she said that that helped her. And I tried that right before my second test, and it really does help because
Good.
you get that experience, you get to feel, okay, so this is, I know that at this time I need to get me a water, and you get just
Yeah.
the little bits of information. You do get breaks during the exam if you request them. They don't break and pull you away from the exam, but you do get to take a break if you need it. So don't panic about, not being able to eat, drink, or go to the bathroom. You do get to do all of that.
Timer
It's
just keeps
very,
running. That's the only thing that you do need to know is your
yes.
timer does keep running while you are taking your break. But yeah.
It does. Once you pause it, you get to take a break. And I don't think you're timed. I think each location might actually be different now that I think about it. With Pearson, I don't remember them saying you have 10 minutes to take a break, but I do remember them telling me how much time I had left on my clock overall, and I needed to be back in enough time to answer the remaining questions in that time frame. Now, with the NBCOT, the final thing on that, this part stressed me out so much. They grade on certain days. So you need to pay
Oh yeah,
attention
I
to
forgot
the
about that.
calendar. Yes. Pay attention to the calendar and it'll show you a time that this is the last date you can take to get the response by this day. And I think they give a 3 to 5 day gap between the last testing day and the grading day. So if you take your test in between grading days, you have to wait sometimes up to 2 weeks to get your results. I know for me, I waited till the last possible day because did not want to wait too much longer. And then once you get, your schedule, you need to make sure that you've paid for your exam because you cannot schedule your test until you have paid. And that's with the ATT letter. And then once you've paid for everything, you can get your test scheduled. You can do everything you need to do and go take the exam. Then you wait for your response, which usually comes via email. So my day of my results, I was up at 4 a.m. waiting to see if I passed my test.
Did they send it that early?
Oh no, they got it. I got it at 8 a.m., but I was up for 4 hours late.
No. I think I didn't get mine till like 10.
Oh, see, I was ready. I was ready. But another thing with that, back to the CEUs real quick, you also have CEUs in regards to the C on your COTA. So with the certification, I think it's a more CEUs for your certification. And
Yes, but it's because it's every 3 years.
it's every 3 years. Yep.
Mhm.
So I don't remember the exact number.
I don't know why I want to say 36, but that could be wrong.
I was thinking 30. So we can verify that. But
Mm, quick.
with that, you can use the same CEUs for your licensure and your certification. So,
36.
oh, look at you go. So it is 36 units that you have to have 36 CEUs for your certification and then the 20 for your license. And like I said, they can be the same, but that does mean that there's 16 units that you have to have additional for your license for your certification part. That part, I don't remember the exact number on it. But whenever I was, working on mine, it was, I think they said that over the 3 year time frame, it averaged out to like, I don't want to say it's 12 CEUs, but it was about 16 hours of work realistically because some of the CEUs are only half points and some of them are 2 points.
Right.
So they averaged it to 16 hours. So that's 16 hours a year that you're going to be putting towards continuing your education, which is just learning more about things that have changed in the field. And, there's always differences in what we've learned about, behavioral health and aging in place and things that are constant change. And it's important for us as practitioners to stay up with it. So CEUs are really valuable,
Mhm.
even though they are a little time consuming at times, but they are also completely necessary for both your licensure and your certification.
And something I want to throw in there while we're talking about certification, because a lot of times people get confused between certification and licensure. Technically, after you have passed the MBCOT and you get licensed, you don't have to keep your C, your certification, which comes from MBCOT. However, if you drop your C and you don't keep up with it, you will have to retake the MBCOT if you want to have your C back. And that can be important because some employers either don't know that the C isn't necessary to practice, or they just want it for an extra thing for you to be certified through the national board. So it's up to you if you want to gamble on that. But I'm not going to gamble on that
I'm not
personally.
gambling.
But some people do. And so just a thing there too.
Yeah, and I know that there are some locations where they prefer to have the C, even though it's still the same knowledge base. You've still done all the same work. It's just an upkeep at that point. But I know I've talked to a few supervisors who look at the C because it is they kind of look at it as the passion is there because you're willing to keep putting forth the effort. So it's not necessarily a judgment of who you are as a practitioner, but you're willing to still put forth that additional time to continue to learn. So they look at it as a dedication. So it's really, if you want to talk to your employer, you can, but I think I'm going to keep mine just because you never know what'll happen. You never know where I'll end up. So I just want to be prepared for anything and everything. And I recommend that for you as well. And I don't remember, is it it's 100 years to renew, or 100 years, $100. It's $100, not 100 years to renew your license. I don't remember the exact number on your certification.
Right now, it is $65 for an online renewal, according to the internet.
With those two things, they're just recommended. Neither, I mean, the licensure is required. Neither are going to be easy to obtain. You have to put in the work for both of them, but they're both definitely recommended. Other than that, go out and celebrate. You did all the hard work.
Yay!
You got to the end. I know at times it seemed like you'd never get there. For me personally, I thought I'd never get there.
Feel that.
But you did it. You made it. First
Yes.
and foremost, celebrate yourself. Celebrate your achievements and your accomplishments. We're rooting for you over here. And then prioritize what is required for you to be able to practice because you've done all that hard work. Might as well get in there. Get it going,
Yes.
get started, start practicing. Do you have
Yes.
anything else to add?
That's all for me.
That's all for me too. Congratulations again. You guys did
Yes,
it.
congratulations.
Reached the end.